Melody has never been the kind of woman to bite her tongue. She believes in speaking the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and that has always set her apart. So, when Martell decided to go on yet another rant on social media, everyone knew something big was about to happen. But this time, the tension between them finally boiled over in a way no one could ignore. For months, fans had been quietly watching their every move. They noticed the awkward online posts, the little digs, the shady comments, and those cryptic stories that always seemed to carry a hidden meaning. It was like watching a puzzle with missing pieces. Everyone could sense something was wrong, but no one could predict what Martell would do next. Then it happened, he snapped. Martell went all in, pouring his emotions into a long message that was impossible to scroll past. He wrote with raw frustration, calling out grievances, throwing shade, and revealing insecurities that had clearly been building up for years. It wasn't just a short venting session. It was emotional, personal, and public. He sounded jealous, hurt, and desperate for Melody's attention. In fact, the way he worded his post made it clear he was craving acknowledgement more than anything else. And just like that, social media lit up. His words spread quickly across every platform. Some people said he was being honest and vulnerable. Others accused him of being dramatic and bitter. Whatever side people chose, one thing was certain: Martell had officially made their private struggles a public spectacle. But it wasn't only fans paying attention. Friends, insiders, and even people who once tried to stay neutral began to comment. They hinted that this post was just the surface of something much deeper. Behind closed doors, there had apparently been countless private messages, ignored calls, and late-night arguments. Martell, it seemed, had been feeling left out and overlooked for a long time. His rant was just the first crack in a wall that had been holding back years of frustration. Melody, meanwhile, sat back and watched everything unfold with sharp awareness. She has always been calculated when it comes to handling conflict. She knows how to pick her battles and when to step back. For years, she managed Martell with grace, sometimes firm but always careful not to create unnecessary drama. But this time was different. Martell's words weren't just emotional, they were public, pointed, and relentless. He dragged her past choices into the spotlight and tried to question her character in front of the world. That was the moment Melody knew she had to respond. Not with petty comments. Not with defensive energy. She needed a statement, something short, clear, and powerful. Something that would remind both Martell and the world exactly who she is and what she will no longer tolerate. When Melody finally replied, the internet nearly froze. Her response was only 4 words, but those 4 words hit like thunder. She wrote, "You had your chance." The simplicity of that phrase was its power. She didn't yell. She didn't insult him. She didn't even explain herself. Instead, she put years of pain, disappointment, and missed opportunities into one sentence. Those words carried finality. They weren't just a clapback. They were a declaration, a line in the sand that told Martell and anyone watching that their story was no longer going to be written on his terms. Fans erupted instantly. Some cheered her on, calling it one of the most iconic responses they had ever seen. Others dissected every word, analyzing her phrasing like detectives searching for clues about their past. Within hours, the phrase became a trend. Memes popped up, influencers recorded videos, and suddenly "you had your chance" wasn't just Melody's response, it was a cultural moment. But behind the excitement, people started digging deeper. They pieced together timelines of old posts, reread Martell's past comments, and uncovered hints they had once overlooked. Slowly, a bigger picture came into focus. This wasn't just about one rant. It was about years of unresolved conflict, moments of betrayal, and private fights the public had never seen. Melody's 4 words revealed that this story had layers more than anyone had realized. Still, her reply wasn't just about shutting Martell down. It was about taking back control. By speaking with intention, Melody reframed the entire conversation. She reminded the world that she wasn't acting out of jealousy, spite, or bitterness. She was standing on self-respect, clarity, and strength. In just one sentence, she showed what it looks like to defend your peace without losing your dignity. Meanwhile, Martell's post looked very different in light of her response. What once seemed like an emotional outburst now felt like the first move in a public chess game, a game that Melody had quickly turned in her favor. She became the player in control, while Martell appeared reactionary, desperate, and emotional. The longer the internet buzzed, the more details began to surface. Insiders whispered that what Melody said online was only a fraction of what had happened privately. Behind the scenes, there were countless late-night texts, arguments about boundaries, and conversations where Martell's jealousy became impossible to hide. Friends close to the situation revealed that people had been trying to mediate for weeks. But ignored calls, unanswered texts, and unspoken resentment only pushed the tension higher until it finally exploded online. By the time Melody responded, her decision was about more than Martell. It was about setting an example. She wasn't just reminding him of his mistakes. She was showing everyone watching that boundaries are not negotiable. And the timing couldn't have been more powerful. Martell's rant came right after Melody had shared news about moving forward in her personal life. That made his frustration seem even more rooted in jealousy, and it made her reply sting even harder. To fans, it didn't look like she was retaliating, it looked like she was standing tall, calm, and crystal clear about her position. The internet, of course, broke into pieces analyzing every detail. Some fans combed through old footage and posts to connect the dots. Others argued passionately about who was right and who was wrong. While a few sympathized with Martell, saying jealousy is a normal human reaction, most agreed that Melody handled the situation with unmatched composure. Even bloggers and commentators who usually thrive on messy drama had to admit her approach was impressive. She turned what could have been a disaster into a powerful lesson in communication and control. Her short reply became a case study in how to shut down disrespect without feeding into the chaos. But this drama also sparked bigger questions. Was this just about a broken relationship, or was it the start of something more complicated? Some speculated that the fallout could impact their future collaborations, friendships, or even their ability to co-parent peacefully. With emotions so high and the entire world watching, their next moves would shape not only their reputations but their long-term lives. Influencers and content creators jumped on the story, breaking down the feud in endless detail. Videos dissected tone, word choice, and timing like it was a masterclass in psychology. Memes made her response immortal. And still, people wanted more. They wanted to know what the private messages said, what the late-night conversations sounded like, and whether Martell would ever admit to the insecurities that fueled his rant. At the heart of it all, though, Melody came out stronger. She had turned pain into power, frustration into clarity, and chaos into control. She didn't let Martell's rant drag her down into messy back and forths. Instead, she stood firm, reminding everyone, including herself, that peace is priceless and respect is non-negotiable. In the end, what started as just another online rant became much bigger. It became a story about timing, strategy, and strength. It became proof that silence, when broken carefully, can be louder than any scream. And it became a reminder to everyone watching that sometimes the most powerful response is the simplest one: you had your chance. The saga may not be over. In fact, it feels like only the beginning of a new chapter. But one thing is clear: Melody has shifted the balance. She's not just reacting anymore. She's leading, and Martell is left to deal with the reality of the chance he lost. People couldn't stop talking about Melody's forward response. The way she condensed years of history, emotion, and boundaries into one short sentence amazed people. Fans admired the strength in her words, but beneath all the noise, insiders whispered that the real story wasn't over. Behind the scenes, there were messages that never reached the public. Martell, according to sources, had sent explanations, apologies, and even justifications for his behavior. But the truth was, Melody had already reached her breaking point. Her patience had been stretched too many times. Every apology that came after a mistake, every ignored boundary, every feeling he failed to acknowledge, it had all piled up until there was nothing left to give. At some point, the story took on a life of its own, escaping the control of both of them. Observers noticed how social media transformed their private conflict into a public stage. Something that was layered and personal turned into a spectacle. Every word was dissected, every reaction was replayed, and fans rushed to pick sides. Influencers created breakdown videos. Meme pages made endless jokes. And all the while, Melody's line "you had your chance" became a cultural stamp. But what made this feud different from the typical celebrity drama was the strategy behind it. Melody didn't just respond with emotion. She responded with precision. It wasn't a rant, it wasn't drawn out, it was clear, short, and intentional. By doing so, she reclaimed control of the story. She made sure her voice was heard without dragging herself into unnecessary chaos. With those words, she reminded Martell and the entire world that she was no longer playing his game. People began to analyze her move as if it were a lesson in communication. Experts in online behavior even called it a masterclass in narrative control. Melody didn't let Martell's jealousy or frustration write the story for her. Instead, she redirected the attention, shifting the focus from his outburst to her boundary. Her response showed that clarity can be more powerful than anger, and that timing is everything in the digital age. The internet reacted instantly. Comment sections filled with praise for her firmness. Viewers debated what accountability really means in relationships. Others discussed respect, self-worth, and emotional maturity in ways that stretched far beyond Melody and Martell's drama. Her 4 words sparked conversations about relationships everywhere. And the phrase itself became more than just a reply. It became shorthand for closure used in hashtags, memes, and posts that had nothing to do with the original feud. Still, while the internet enjoyed the viral moment, there was something more human happening in the background. Friends of both Melody and Martell reported tension in their inner circles. There were conversations that didn't go well, messages left unanswered, and moments of quiet reflection. What the world was watching online was only part of the story. The truth was, this feud was deeply personal. The emotions weren't staged for the internet, they were real, and they carried weight far beyond likes and shares. For Martell, the fallout was swift. His credibility took a hit among people who valued self-control and composure. To some, he looked impulsive and bitter. Yet, others sympathized with him, saying he was simply human, hurt, insecure, and struggling to express his emotions in a healthy way. The debate itself showed just how split the audience was. But no matter what side people stood on, one fact was clear: Melody had the stronger hand. Her reply showed poise under pressure. Fans saw her as a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to show it. Commentators praised her ability to draw a line and stick to it. Even people who usually thrived on gossip admitted that her response wasn't messy, it was measured. In a world where social media often rewards the loudest drama, Melody proved that calm authority can be even louder.